お待たせいたしました。お時間となりましたので、ただいまより第3回日本アフリカビジネスフォーラム JABF2021 セッション3アフリカの工業化を開会いたします。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。本フォーラムは日本語、英語、フランス語の音声にて配信しております。プルダウンメニューから本日の日付とご希望の言語を選択してご視聴ください。はじめに、総務省国際戦略局長、田原康夫様より開会のお言葉をいただきます。田原様、お願いいたします。
日本来る副長官、各国大使閣下、ご参加の皆様、こんにちは。総務省国際戦略局長の田原です。この度、関係者のご尽力により、第3回日アフリカビジネスフォーラムが開催されましたことを、心よりお喜び申し上げます。また、アフリカの発展にとって重要な工業化について、本日は特にデジタル化に焦点を当てた議論が行われるということで、総務省から開会挨拶を申し上げる機会を頂戴いたしましたこと、大変嬉しく思います。さて、工業化において特に最近世界中で競い合っているのがデジタルトランスフォーメーション DX の推進であることは言うまでもありません。農業、ヘルスケア、教育といった社会基盤となる分野、また行政分野、これらの分野において ICT やデジタル技術を活用し、経済活動の効率化や生産性向上、国民生活の質の向上を図ることが期待されています。また、このトレンドに輪をかけたのが新型コロナウイルスです。物理的な人や物の移動が制限されたことで、私たちの日常生活はもとより、あらゆる社会システムを見直すきっかけとなりました。その結果、さまざまな活動のデジタル化の必要性や通信インフラの重要性が叫ばれるようになり、これは我々日本国のみならず、アフリカ各国でも同様であると承知しております。このような中、2年前の2019年8月、日本国の横浜で開催された第7回アフリカ開発会議 TICAD7 において ICT 担当閣僚会議会合として日アフリカ ICT ハイレベルラウンドテーブルを総務省主催で初めて開催しました。この会合を契機として我々はアフリカ各国において一つ一つ協力プロジェクトを積み重ねています。日本企業の技術力を活用しながらアフリカ各国のデジタル化にも少しでも貢献できていることを嬉しく思います。スライド投影お願いします。こちらは現在、総務省や日本企業がアフリカで展開しているプロジェクトの全体像です。総務省とアフリカ各国とのデジタル分野での協力関係は、地上デジタル放送の日本方式をボツワナとアンゴラで採用いただいたことから始まっています。その後、まずは2国間で通信やデジタルのプロジェクトを進めていますが、今後もこれらの成功事例を他国へも展開したいと考えています。今年度は農業、ヘルスケア分野で新しいプロジェクトを予定しており、光ファイバー敷設などのインフラ整備や教育分野にも力を入れてまいります。最近のトピックを一つご紹介させていただきます。エチオピアの携帯電話事業についてです。エチオピア政府が通信の自由化という大改革を成し遂げようとしていることは皆さんはご承知のことかと思います。このライセンスを日本の住友商事や英国のボーダフォン、ケニアのサファリコムという名だたる企業で構成される国際コンソーシアムが勝ち取りましたが、このことは 5G、またビヨンド 5G の導入も見据え、今後のエチオピアのモバイルサービスの発展に大きく貢献できるものと考えています。また、その他、本日のセッションで登壇される NEC ソフトバンクにおいても、アフリカにおいて生体認証技術や非地上系ネットワークの展開を推進し、今後も様々な分野へのソリューション導入が期待されるところです。次のスライドをお願いします。視点を変えますが、アフリカ諸国への新型コロナウイルス感染症対策支援も進めています。こちらは東京大学の柴崎教授が開発した人流データの分析ソフトウェアです。ウイルス感染のクラスター発生スポットからの人の移動状況や感染者の継続的な行動対応等が 把握可能となるものでオープンソース化し、各国に無償提供しています。現在、ルワンダ、モザンビーク、ガンビアで活用されております。次のスライドをお願いします。国際電気通信連合 ITU において総務省から提案し、資金拠出している Connect to Recover というプロジェクトも進められています。このプロジェクトでは、新型コロナウイルス感染拡大抑止のための通信網、デジタル技術活用に関するギャップや、ボトルネックの検証、調査、分析、実証プロジェクトなどが実施されます。現在、日本からの資金は、コンゴ民主共和国とルワンダにおけるプロジェクトに活用されています。今、ご紹介させていただいたのは一例ですが、日本企業の質の高い ICT ソリューション技術は、アフリカ諸国のデジタル化推進に必ず貢献できるものと信じております。総務省といたしましては、今後もアフリカ諸国のニーズによく耳を傾けながら、日本企業の皆様と共にアフリカのデジタル化に向けた取り組みを加速し、これらの取り組みを通じて、来年チュニジアで開催予定の TICAD8 の成功にも貢献していきたいと考えております。本日のセッションが日本とアフリカ諸国の友好関係のさらなる推進につながり、またご参加の皆様のアフリカ投資や事業展開につながることを期待して、私の挨拶とさせていただきます。ありがとうございました。
田村様、ありがとうございました。続きまして、ルワンダ開発庁副長官、ゼファニー・ニヨンクル様より開会のお言葉をいただきます。ニヨンクル副長官、お願いいたします。
Mr. Yasu Tawara, Director General of the Global Strategy Bureau, Minister of Internal Affairs and Communications, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors and Heads of Delegations, esteemed panelists and discussants, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. On behalf of the CEO of Rwanda Development Board and my own behalf, I want to thank the organizers for the invitation to take part in this important third Japan-Africa Business Forum. This Japan-Africa Business Forum is taking place at a time when humanity is dealing with the COVID-19 global pandemic, which has restricted international travels and businesses with the countries showing varying degrees of coping and resilience. According to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, each month of lockdown puts up to 2.5% of the African gross domestic product at risks. I believe that this is not the time to isolate ourselves and roll back international cooperation, but this is the time to join hands and efforts and create synergies in the fight against the pandemic. Africa is a continent made up of 54 sovereign states and different levels of industrialization. And this research shows that since 90s in sub-Saharan Africa, value-added manufacturing as a percentage of GDP has shrunk over time. For example, in 2005, a mere 10% of the total workforce of sub-Saharan Africa were employed in industry, compared to 6% that was in agriculture. Between 2005 and 2020, there was a 50% a drop in the share of agricultural workers in Africa, with 37% of those previously in agriculture transitioning to the service industry. The topic of this session, which is Industrialized Africa, is very pertinent at this point in time. Many of you may agree that experience has shown that industrialization is a key pillar in the social economic development of different countries. That's why Africa must also industrialize if we are to be competitive in this global economy. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa's involvement in international trade has been mainly through export of raw materials, with basic metals accounting approximately 54% of manufactured exports. Africa regional blocks offer economies of scale and linkage to manufacturing firms which increase the competitiveness of linkage to value chains connected to the global market. The level of cooperation in Africa is on a promising trajectory, and a recent study by the World Bank indicated that if the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is implemented effectively, by 2035, it will be lifting around 30 million Africans out of poverty. Aligning efforts to achieve resilience industrial development is key, and they need to continue working together to help rebuild our economies and prepare them for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, in Rwanda, we have worked hard to remove the impediments to industrialization and to put in place policies and infrastructure that will be supporting this industrialization process. We intend to double electricity generation over the next 3 years. And we have key projects that are going on which will help us to achieve this process and keep providing required energy and other infrastructure to industry-related activities. We have also undertaken quite a number of reforms when it comes to the ease of doing business. And in Africa, Rwanda is ranked number 2 in terms of the ease of doing business, and number 38 globally. This session on industrialized Africa that will discuss the challenges and chances in the era of COVID-19 concerning structural transformation through promoting digitization, industrialization, and diversification comes at the right place and at the right moment as Africa is achieving and working to achieve inclusive, sustainable industrial development through the promotion of foreign direct investment and also technology transfer. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa needs to industrialize. In Rwanda, we are ready to welcome Japanese investors who see the opportunities on our continent, and we are also ready to receive investors from different parts of the world. On this note, I wish you fruitful discussions and deliberations. Thank you.
ゼファニー・ニヨンクル副長官、ありがとうございました。続きまして、パネルディスカッションに移らせていただきます。モデレーターは EY ストラテジー&コンサルティング株式会社パートナーの小林信子様です。小林様は戦略コンサルタントとして15年以上の経験を有し、消費財メーカー、外資系企業、総合商社を中心に戦略策定プロジェクトを数多く支援されていらっしゃいます。コンサルタントとしての活動の傍ら、日経アジア、BBC、ブルームバーグなどの国内外メディアへの寄稿や、国際会議での講演を頻繁に行われており、2020年には日仏ビジネスサミット、アフリカ地域におけるビジネス、新たなビジネスパートナーシップに向けての進行役を務められました。それでは、ここからは小林様、お願いいたします。
はい、ご紹介ありがとうございます。では私の方から本日のパネリスト5名をまずご紹介したいと思います。国際連合公共開発機関ユニドですね、東京投資技術移転促進事務所長の安永裕子様、それからスマートアフリカ技術イノベーション局長のディディエ・ヌクリキームフラス様、RX オール CEO のアデバヨ・アロンゲ様、NEC グローバル事業推進本部本部長の前川健太郎様、最後になりましたが、ソフトバンク株式会社グローバル事業戦略本部本部長の北原秀文様、よろしくお願いいたします。ではまずパネリストの皆様それぞれからですね、5分程度のイントロダクションのプレゼンテーションをお願いしたいと思います。ではまず、安永様、よろしくお願いいたします。
Thank you very much, Jerry, for your kind introduction. the Excellencies, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, I am Yuko Yasunaga, head of the Tokyo office UNIDO. I'm really honored to be here at third JABF with all the colleagues joining this session. Please turn to the next page. Yes, my office, UNIDO Tokyo office, is promoting the direct investment and technology transfer from Japan to Africa and other developing and emerging countries. I would like to raise 5 key questions based on our experiences for the discussion today. Please turn to the next page. My first key question is, what shall we do for African industrialization? What is the difference between Africa and Asia? Please take a look at the industrialization of Thailand and Malaysia. Those two countries are now categorized in upper middle income countries. Direct investment from Japan and those two countries' comparative advantages, like well-educated workforce, the foreign capital friendly policy, and so on. These advantages have been going hand in hand. Export-oriented industries works well in ASEAN cases. And for earning foreign currency, export is quite important for all of the countries. However, many African countries need import substitute type of industrialization, like the processed food, the clothes, the everyday consumer goods. So we need balance. Please turn to the next page. Okay, my key question number 2 is, how can we enhance collaborations between business sectors from Africa and Japan? Africa is a continent as a frontier of goals or full of challenges. For example, water, food, energy, medical services, the education, hygiene and sanity, communication, disaster prevention, and so on. So, and we know African business persons are very, very agile and proactive. African business mind and Japanese technologies or Japanese business persons' the attitude, especially from the SMEs, small and medium enterprise, are good companions to proceed. Please turn to the next page. My key questions number 3 is, how shall we manage analog and digital? Yes, please remember that everything is composed from analog in the real world. Your mobile phone will not provide you with food or water. However, digital greatly contributes to smooth and scalable dissemination of technologies and businesses. So combination of analog and digital will make it possible for African people. In this context, again, Africa and Japan are good companions, especially African young talents and matured Japanese business person who knows the real world application of digital technology. Thank you. And please turn to the next page. This is my key question number 4. What do we learn from Africa? Yes, we have many things to learn from Africa. An African proverb, many of you may know, an African proverb which says, go alone if you want to go fast, but go together with your friends if you want to go far. We learn from the proverb that African society is very matured and well structured with its cultural heritage, cultural tradition. So, and we feel that Africans and Japanese have the same mentality or philosophy. We need both go along people and go together people for smooth industrialization. Please turn to the next page. This is the final page. What kind of Japanese experience can we share with Africa? Yes, we can share many of our experiences with necessary customization to African situation, like environmental protection, that includes regulation plus business mind. or including promotion of circular economy and energy conservation and so on, and educational systems. That's all. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yasunaga, for framing these important questions. We'll revisit some of them surely in our panel discussion. Now, let me turn to Didier-san from Smart Africa for his introduction.
Thank you very much for having me today. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Smart Africa is part of a revolution which is currently happening in the continent. African industrialization cannot be separated from technology. And technology is at the center of Africa's renaissance and transformation. As we stand today, we stand on the brink of a technology revolution, which will fundamentally alter the way we live, work, and relate to one another. And in its scale, scope, and complexity, the transformation will be unlike anything humankind has experienced before. Therefore, technology must be seen as a key aspect of the development of the African continent. This is why in 2013, 7 heads of state met in Kigali, along with over 500 participants representing the public sector, the private sector, academia, and research, and adopted the Smart Africa Manifesto with the 5 principles that you can see on the screen. A new era was started, and this agenda was adopted by the African Union in January 2014 and has since grown to 32 countries, representing a market of over 850 million and representing all of blocks of the continent. As a sign of their personal commitment, head of state and government resolved to meet and to be involved at the highest level of governance of Smart Africa. Under the chairmanship of President Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda, this initiative has grown in size and also grown in the ability to really transform the continent. And with the leadership of Smart Africa, our effort now drives towards the attainment and development of the 4th industrial revolution, where we bring together the physical, digital, and biological world. The possibility of billions of people connected by mobile devices with unprecedented processing power, storage capacity, and access to knowledge are unlimited. And these possibilities will be multiplied by emerging technologies breakthrough in the fields such as artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things, autonomous vehicle, 3D printing, nanotechnology, biotechnology, energy storage, and quantum computing, just to name a few. As the result of this perfect storm of technologies, the 4th industrial revolution is paving the way for transformative changes in the way we live and radically disrupt almost every socioeconomic sectors. And at Smart Africa, we have several initiatives that are driving socioeconomic development. And in the respect of time, I will just touch some of them, which are all organized around 3 specific areas that are the focus of Smart Africa. The first one is to build affordable digital infrastructure to interconnect the continent. Secondly, to promote and facilitate investment and doing business across Africa. And lastly, accelerate the birth and development of digital society. All of these with the vision of creating a single digital market for Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, what you see on the screen is the triennial strategy that is being implemented by Smart Africa and that was approved by the board of Smart Africa. On the left, you have the focus area. On the middle, you have specific project and initiatives, a wide span of project and initiative, and all of that working towards the outcome that you can see, which is essentially around job creation, sustainable development, cashless economy, citizen participation, transparency, trust, and accountability. We work with countries, we work with private sector, we work with a wide range of development partners to implement different areas of this digital transformation agenda for the continent. Some initiatives around connectivity, cloud data center, smart devices, blockchain, digital ID, cross-border payment, but also cross-cutting initiatives such as data governance, cybersecurity, capacity building, and digital economy. All of these are transforming deeply the continent, and we look forward to work with Japan and other partners to make this a reality. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation, Didier-san. Next, we'll turn to the entrepreneur on the panel. Mr. Alonge, please.
Hello, everyone. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all other protocols duly observed. My full names are Adebayo Alonge. I'm co-founder and CEO at Arexol. At Arexol, we are building a trusted marketplace platform for authenticated quality medicines. Next slide, please. More than 30% of medicines that are distributed on the continent are falsified, and this leads to over 100,000 Africans dying as a result. Next slide. Personally, I survived a 21-day coma from a fake drug 15 years ago while I was growing up in Africa. And this led me down the journey of trying to understand why the supply chain of pharmaceuticals on the continent is broken. As a result of my research and training as a pharmacist and working across all sectors of the industry from retail to manufacturing and distribution over the last 15 years, I was able to identify the broken spots as being two major areas. One being that many of the hospitals and pharmacies in the continent have no means to authenticate the quality of what they have been supplied. And secondly, access and affordability is also a big issue on the continent, where medicines continue to be the most expensive globally. Next slide. And as part of that assessment, I realized that the market opportunity for this problem across the continent is worth over $30 billion. Next slide. And we decided that we're going to build out the Arexol platform, integrating an integrated suite of technologies, next slide, of which it's built on top of a drug testing solution that has come out of a R&D lab. It's 8 years of research into machine learning and molecular spectroscopy has led to the RX scanner device that is able to test the quality of medicines in 20 seconds using a simple mobile phone and the internet. And then we provide this to pharmaceutical wholesalers as well as drug agencies to authenticate the quality of medicines that they are receiving or that's being distributed in the country. And then those wholesalers can then list what they have tested on the marketplace. So the drug testing kit solves the problem of not knowing the quality of what's been supplied to you, while the marketplace enables the hospitals, pharmacies, and even patients find where high quality tested medicines are available around them. The hospitals, pharmacies, and patients can then go on that marketplace, choose the seller partner they want to buy from, place an order, and they can either go in person to pick it up or they can have it delivered to them. Next slide, please. In building out this Arexol ecosystem, we have built out a drug testing kit. We'll build out a marketplace platform where the medicines are exchanged. We've provided a point of sale software to the sellers to enable them manage their businesses so that they can know the seasonality of the products, which products are about to expire, and they can ensure that they have the products that they need in place. In addition, around this ecosystem, we've added in financing so that they can have access to the medicines that they need to exchange with the hospitals, pharmacies, and patients. So it's an entire ecosystem we're building around pharmaceutical wholesalers, hospitals, pharmacies and patients across Africa. Primarily, our market today is in Nigeria, and we're expanding to a number of other countries. In terms of partnerships with the Japanese companies, we see opportunities for semiconductor companies to provide the chips that we use for the drug testing kit. We see opportunities for financing with the VCs, as well as even lease financing on the delivery bikes and the order financing requirements that the sellers need to be able to have stock in place on the marketplace. So looking forward to talking more about how we are going about the digital revolution on the continent. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Alonge-san. That's a fascinating journey of the digital technology meeting the challenge from a real societal problem that you personally lived. Thank you for sharing that. Now we will turn to the two Japanese gentlemen again, starting with Maekawa-san from NEC, please.
はい、西野前川と申します。すみません。日本語でプレゼンはやらせていただきます。次のページ行ってください。お願いします。はい、こちら弊社の会社概要でございます。NEC はですね、日本に本社を置きます ICT 企業でございます。世界各国にですね、301の拠点がございます。次のページお願いします。はい、その中でもアフリカはですね、2つの地域に分けて管轄しております。北アフリカはトルコのイスタンブールから見ておりまして、南のサブサハラ地域ですね、こちらは南アフリカの方から全体を見てやっております。この南アフリカの会社なんですが、我々2018年に南アフリカの会社を買収しまして、今ですね、400人ほどの従業員がおります。でこの従業員の中にはですね、ナーの方、それからナイジェリアの方、ケニアの方、ナミビアの方といった形で、ほとんどがアフリカの方でオペレーションをされております。日本人は2、3名が赴任しております。はい、次のページお願いします。で我々のアフリカでの活動を通じまして、どのようなことがアフリカの工業化に重要かというポイントをちょっとピックアップいたしました。この数字はですね、まず10億人、1ビリオンというのは世界中でですね、戸籍を持っていない人、ID を持っていない人ですね、全世界で10億人おります。そのうちの半分の5億人、こちらはですね、アフリカに ID を持っていない方ということになります。でこの実は ID を持っていないというのは非常に、いろんな意味で、行政サービスとかですね、受けられていないという問題もありまして、ちょっと次のページお願いできますか。はい。この ID の持つちょっと力というものをご説明したいと思います。まずですね、この ID をデジタル化して、でかつバイオメトリックス、生体認証を入れることによってですね、非常に効率的かつ安全に、担保された基盤になります。でこれが整備されますと、こちらの絵のですね、ソーシャルサービスというところなんですが、いろんな行政のサービスが受けることができます。これもデジタルの力で、人々に、サービスがいくということです。この ID というのはですね、国民一人一人の、識別が、国として識別ができるというポイントと、本人の確認ができるという、こういう大きな2つのファンクションがございます。したがって、この ID を持つことによって、ソーシャルサービス、行政サービスをいろんな面で享受できることができるというのが一つのポイントです。で、実はこの ID を整備することによって、それ以上にですね、プライベートサービス、プライベートセクターに開放することもあります。で、そうすることによって、実はプライベートセクターの方で、さまざまなイノベーティブなサービスが生まれる可能性を秘めております。例えば、シェアリングエコノミーとかですね、オンライン、リアルタイム、こういう部分、デジタルエコノミーとかもありますが、この本人確認ができるという部分が担保されることによって、非常にいろんなさまざまなサービスが今後生まれてくるだろうと。逆に言えば、このアフリカの人たちによって、このプライベートサービスというのは、よりたくさんのイノベーティブなところが生まれてくるんではないかと思っております。そのためにも、この ID というのは非常に重要な基盤になっております。でアフリカにはですね、まだ未整備な国がたくさんあります。でそのような中でも成功している国がございます。次のページお願いします。 こちら、左側ですね、南アフリカの事例でございます。南アフリカは1999年に、国民 ID を導入しまして、我々は指紋認証という生体認証を使って、この ID の部分ですね、貢献させてもらっているのですが、こちらはですね、イミグレーションとかパスポートとかいろいろなことに使われております。でこれをさらに大きくして、成功している事例、これがインドになります。人口が13億人いる中で、驚異的にも12億人くらいがもう登録されていると言われております。こちらもですね、弊社、生体認証の部分、ID の部分を担当させていただいております。こうしてですね、ID を整備することによって、行政サービスを一人一人、漏れなく行き渡らせることができると、公平に平等に、サービスがいくという部分、そして、それにとどまらず、その後のプライベートサービスですね、いろんなイノベーティブなサービスができるポテンシャルを持っておりまして、アフリカはこのID を整備することによって、産業化というものも活性化するんじゃないかと我々は考えております。はい、以上になります。ありがとうございました。
前川さんありがとうございます。ID というのは本当に社会基盤の基盤みたいなところで、日本にいるとなかなか改めて考えませんが、日本はまたマイナンバーみたいな違う課題があると思いますけれども、その普及ですね。ただアフリカでのもしかするとリープフロッグのきっかけになるのかなというふうにお伺いいたしました。では最後になりましたが、イントロダクションのパネリストをお願いいたします。ソフトバンクの北原さんです。
Hi everyone, my name is Hide Kitahara. I'm very happy to be here. I've been working for SoftBank more than 16 years, and then I was working for the network strategy for Japan. Now we have the 100% population coverage in Japan. You go anywhere, anytime, you can have a 4G or maybe sometimes 5G coverage. But if you look at the global market, nearly half of the population in the world is still, they don't have any connectivity or any method to achieve the internet. So as an infrastructure company, as a SoftBank, our target, we have to make all those unconnected people to connected. That's our vision, that's our goal in terms of the global market. So number of the people without internet, there are 3.7 billion people are unconnected, which, as I said, which is going to be half of the people population in the global. 3.7 billion people are unconnected. In the case of in Africa, the number increased. So 60% of the people population in Africa land. There's no way that they can connect to the internet. 60%. In Japan, in terms of the penetration of mobile phone is over 120%, which is more than one device per subscribers. And in Africa, it's only 60%, 40% are connected to the internet. So not only in Africa, but also for the global, as I said, there are 3.7 billion people unconnected. Our mission as an infrastructure company, we bring connectivity to the world. But to do that, if you're going to build the base stations in a single country, it's going to take a lot of cost and a lot of time. So our weapon is connectivity from the sky. What we call is a non-terrestrial network as a connectivity from the sky. So if you look at the very left-hand side, that's the regular base station that we deploy on the ground. But that covers, 1 to 5 kilometers, which is not enough for the super rural area or maybe maritime. So as a SoftBank, we have 3 weapons addition to the base station on the ground. One is the HAPS. HAPS stands for the High Altitude Platform Station. It flies the 20 kilometers above the ground. It's the autonomous aircraft, no man. It's autonomous, and we can put the base stations on the aircraft, so that from the 20 kilometers from the sky, it transmits the radio 4G, 5G, or even beyond 5G, and it communicate to the smartphones. In the middle one is OneWeb. Compared with a regular satellite, it is very different from in terms of the speed and the latencies. Speed-wise, you can get 200 megabit per second per subscriber. In terms of the latency, it's almost same as the LTE, which is 40 milliseconds. And we have another portfolio company, Skylo, which is only focusing on the narrowband IoT. Some people, some industry, they do not need to have any high speed or low latency. For those industry, Skylo is going to be the good fit because it's going to be much cheaper and very handy for the device. So I think with those three weapons, bringing non-terrestrial network, we can change the way of the living. Again, our vision is we all make unconnected people to connected. And this is just a very new news that we launched yesterday with Smart Africa. We had done this, agreement, and we had a press announcement that we will bring our connectivity using a non-terrestrial network to the Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kitahara-san. That's wonderful for you to share the news that connects the two panelists who are on this panel today. So that's very appropriate. And I think we'll discuss the topic of digital divide, which is really a challenge if we try to industrialize Africa with the power of digitization. Thank you, our panelists, for sharing with us your stories. And now we will turn to the panel discussion. Let me set the context, kind of coming back to what Yasunaga-san started with. Our topic today is industrialization of Africa. But when we speak of industrialization in Africa, we note that it's going to be very different from the path that Asia took or even Japan took after the war. We did evolve in sequence from light manufacturing to heavy manufacturing, ICT and so forth, and precision manufacturing. And over time, we reached at this digitization age. Internet started around 2000, et cetera. So it was a very step-by-step evolutionary path that we followed. But this textbook would not apply to Africa because it's all happening concurrently, it seems. So we have now the advantage of digital technology. But at the same time, we need to develop the manufacturing industry and also the traditional service industry at the same time. The benefit is that the digital technology is very scalable, and it probably suits the young, youthful population of Africa. On the other hand, the challenge is going to be how do we develop these analog, borrowing Yasunaga-san's word, industries that would probably generate employment and therefore wealth and therefore the middle class that would bring up the country level from low income to middle income to high income countries. Also, we need to address, as Maekawa-san and Kitahara-san touched on, the issue of digital divide. Do we have the infrastructure and then is it equitably distributed? That is going to be a huge challenge. So we have both the unique benefit from being in this era to industrialize, but at the same time, we have unique challenges. And as you saw from our panelists' introductory remarks, all of them address this challenge in their unique way. So I look forward to hearing from them their perspectives. Now, let me start with the first question. Japanese businesses have so much to offer because of its maturity in terms of the technology in the real world. How do we successfully combine this with the kind of the multiplier force, the scalability of digitization? And let me turn to Yasunaga-san first, and then to Didier-san on this one.
Thank you, Nobuko-san, for your excellent introduction to the discussion. Yes, I completely agree with you about the opportunity of ICT, especially in terms of scalability of that technology. And in addition to that, ICT and network infrastructure can help us allocate our financial and human resources properly. And ICT can also ensure timely and flexible adjustment of our activities. In the sense, I think we need to we need to create and enhance the opportunity of encounter between digital and analog technologies. For example, the UNIDO, it's the very small international agency, but our office is conducting the operating online technology platform called STEP, Sustainable Technology Promotion Platform, to disseminate Japanese analog or real type of technology. But if we mash up the business person from digital and analog inside our community, we can bring many things for further leapfrogging. And also, I know Mr. Hada is the actual head of the Japanese business group focusing on Africa. So his group is quite helpful for that kind of mashing up of the digital and analog person and the African and the Japanese business person. Thank you very much.
Mashing up, very interesting. Didier-san?
Thank you very much. I also would like to agree on that the ordinary development path that Japan has gone through. Today in the world, we have really the opportunity to leapfrog. We don't have to go again on the same process of industrialization that many countries, developed countries, have gone through. Today, we are playing on a more leveled field, and with connectivity, with smart devices, with knowledge, we can create new talent who in turn can also contribute to expand the ability to create innovation, to create solutions that respond to the needs of Africa and beyond. And where we see the partnership with Japan being a strategic one is that Japan, over the last decades, has known big strides, important strides in terms of technology development. And we can only, and I think my predecessor from UNIDO mentioned it in the beginning, if we want to really go far, you go with someone else. If you want to go fast, you go yourself. I believe that there is a potential strategic impact, a greater impact actually, by combining forces, the technology, knowledge, with a very good understanding from Africa by people like my colleague here, and our entrepreneur, Mr. Longe from Nigeria, a very good understanding of the African context. Culturally, Japan and Africa might not share a lot in terms of culture, because Japan has probably not been involved a lot in the continent, but by bringing the local knowledge and the technology, I believe we can really create really powerful platform that can help respond to the need of the continent and even beyond. So I just wanted to acknowledge that this is something that can definitely become a multiplier force. And we can see from Japan these signs from, of course, these different platforms like TICAD and others where there are conversations that are going towards that direction, and we look forward to have such conversation materialize into concrete partnerships that can make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Didier-san. That's a great prelude, actually, to my next question for Mr. Alonge, because you embody a case study of leveraging the digital technology to really improve on the quality of life of the people. You also started to touch on the collaboration with the Japanese companies, be it logistics, semiconductor, etc. So in your entrepreneurial endeavor, do you see any challenges in combining your digital expertise with the real world infrastructure that Japan can bring, logistics, and what do you actually look for from Japanese companies? We have many Japanese business executives in the audience, so that'll be a good message for our audience. Alonge-san.
Thank you. So the primary problem we face in terms of combining digital and analog, or what we refer to as digital online offline combinations, is really access to the internet, right? That's something that the SoftBank Kitahara has mentioned. In many parts of Nigeria where we are mostly functioning, actually, we're looking at over 60% of the landmass. A lot of the people there do not have broadband internet, so they're usually dependent on a mobile phone to get to the internet. So what it has led us to do is to sort of also offer alternative digital options, what I refer to as a sort of omni-digital approach to enabling them access our platform. So today, whether you are in the major city or you are in a rural area, you can access the RXO platform directly through the internet if you have it. You can access it through SMS, a simple USSD code. You can send in your order to us and we'll have it fulfilled to you. You can access it through WhatsApp, and you can even access it by going directly into physical retail stores that we have partnered with across the country. So is this sort of approach in terms of addressing the challenges that many local African entrepreneurs sort of take, versus the West, where it's like, this is a dedicated approach. We want to do it completely online, and then that's it. In Africa, if you want to get your solution out there, you need to be able to adapt to the realities on the ground. So I would say that is sort of the major challenge. So that's sort of the major challenge that we have faced as a sort of online to offline business. I mean, there's a number of other complementary challenges that have come along. So if you look at logistics, for example, wherein in the major cities, the road networks are pretty congested. And so delivery time, if you're using a thermocooled van, can take 2 times longer than if you're using a bike, right? So that sort of adaptation is the reason why we're also offering faster deliveries by using bike systems. And then obviously being able to manage delivery expectation for larger customers like hospitals that cannot use bikes for fast delivery. So that's some of the specific challenges that we're faced with the online offline approach. In terms of engaging with Japanese companies, it's primarily going to be focused on 2 parts, the technology piece and the finance piece. On the technology side, if you look at a platform like us, we use a lot of semiconductors to build the drug testing kit, and finding, right now in the world, there's a shortage of the conductor chips and the prices have gone up significantly. So finding reliable partners that can give us high quality chips for the production is one of the things that we're looking for. And then on the other forms of technology will be related to e-bikes, self-delivery, autonomous delivery drones, those sort of equipment, for example, is very useful in going out and delivering to wider expanse areas where we don't really have a lot of road network or where insecurity could be an issue. Then the second piece I mentioned is financing. That's the lubrication that we need as entrepreneurs to scale the platform, but even more importantly for the analog businesses that we're partnering with and we're bringing online, they need the financing as well, what we refer to as trade financing for importation, for credit financing their own customers, for being able to have the stock that they need to resell on the marketplaces as well. So that's how we see Japanese companies and business people can come in and work with us on the continent.
That makes a lot of sense. And there's an increased enthusiasm to invest in Africa via venture capitals and so forth from Japan's side as well. And your earlier comments reminds me of something that Kitahara-san mentioned, that 60% of the African consumers are actually unconnected, which is a major disenabler. But what you mentioned, Alonge-san, makes sense, that you have this versatile multi-access so that you overcome, if one road doesn't get there, you have another road or another road. So that's a great segue to my next question of the digital infrastructure, how to overcome the challenge of digital divide, or this state of many people being still unconnected. So let me start with you, perhaps, Kitahara-san, because it's directly links from what Alonge-san shared with us. The telecom infrastructure, the connectivity from the sky, non-terrestrial, is a key enabler, it seems. Could you tell us a little bit about how you specifically address the problem of the digital divide that exists in Africa?
Yeah, thank you very much for asking the question. The presentation I did was only 5 minutes, so that was not good enough. Let me talk about the SoftBank history. SoftBank started our telecom business 20 years ago. And back to 2000, Japan as a country was very, very behind compared with other developed countries in terms of the penetration of the broadband, or mobile connectivity. So you had to pay like $120 only for the 128 kilobit per second speed. Very expensive and then very slow. That's why SoftBank decided to bring broadband connectivity to Japan. We didn't have any experience as a telecom operator because we were the software distributor 20 years ago. We didn't have any experience. But with our CEO Masa-san, we decided to join that industry and bring a revolution. As a result, the speed-wise, we could provide connectivity, broadband service with 50 megabit per second with only $20. That is a revolution. We distributed free ADSL modem to the young people, to the old people, everybody in the town. We have invested several $1 billion. We didn't care about money. We care about the infrastructure. Otherwise, Japan will be far behind compared with other countries. That's why we decided we need to invest. And then right after that, many competitors joined. Now the market is open, and the situation has been dramatically changed. So based on that experience we had, I think we need to bring connectivity to the global. That's why we come to the conclusion we need to have a non-terrestrial network. Whatever you provide a service, you need to have a connectivity. Whatever you need to have a connectivity. So internet is a baseline as an infrastructure company. But as I said in my presentation, if you are going to deploy base station, in each country, it's going to cost a lot and it's going to take a lot of time. As a fact, in case of Japan and SoftBank, we spend $3 billion every year only for Japan. Japan is a small island in terms of the land, but we spend $3 billion. We cannot do that for other countries. How much money do we need? So, but instead of the base station ground, non-terrestrial network, in a very efficient way, we can provide a coverage network. So as I said, we have hubs, OneWeb, and Skylo. Why do we have three weapons? Why not only one? Because, depending on the use case, depending on the customers, each solution have a very unique point. For example, as I said, hubs, we will put a base station with aircraft, so that hubs enables, LTE, 5G, or beyond 5G, which means you can have a connectivity using your existing phone, like iPhone or Android phone, smartphones. You don't have to have a special device. So that is very, very, unique point of the hubs, and very, very important and then success factor to provide a connectivity to the people. On the other hand, OneWeb is a satellite. It's a LEO constellation. The regular satellite is much faster and much cheaper and low latency. But hubs, you can have a coverage in the ocean, for example. But OneWeb is a global coverage, including the ocean. So that, for example, if we need to have a coverage in the ocean, OneWeb is going to be a suitable solution. If you need to have a coverage in the super rural area where MNO doesn't support, OneWeb could be a good solution for the broadband connectivity. And the last piece is the Skylo, is focused on the narrowband IoT. When mobile operator designed a network, which was my job, it's based on the population coverage. So where the people live, we need to have the coverage. We need to provide a coverage. But for those areas where people doesn't live, there's no coverage. As a fact, for example, Japan land 70% is a mountain. So all the population, all the people lives in only the 30% of the land. That's why Japan is very concentrated. But in terms of the IoT, Internet of the Things, for IoT sensors, maybe you don't need to have, you need to have a coverage for the IoT sensor, because for those areas where people doesn't live, in a mountain, ocean, wherever people doesn't live. For example, mountain fire. A couple $billion is losing every year in the global, in California, Japan, Brazil, because people doesn't live there. When the fire, broke out, people doesn't notice because people doesn't live there. But we put the sensor there, and with the connectivity, if the fire triggers, we can immediately find, fire is happening. So for those areas, people doesn't live, but don't need a high speed throughput. Skylo is going to be the suitable solution. That's why we have three weapons.
Fascinating, and that makes total sense. I'm old enough to remember when SoftBank really invented or imported and then really pioneered the broadband connection in Japan. So now we take it for granted. It's almost like air you breathe, right? But I think it's not to be taken granted, and I can see that what you're doing in Africa is actually very consistent with your DNA of bringing this vital infrastructure for digitization so that we can build on it. And it's also an interesting point that you actually need the coverage in the areas that people don't necessarily live. It's for IoT. That makes total sense. And speaking of IoT, Maekawa-san, I wanted to turn to you for what you have introduced to us in your presentation on biometric certification. And this is a drastically advanced, it seems, solution, even for Japan. Maybe you could share with us a little bit why this is particularly an attractive solution for Africa.
Right. Thank you very much, Kobayashi-san. Actually, ID is a kind of platform of public service or private service. So always this platform must be well secured. So when secure is considered. There are 3 points it must be considered. First, what do you have? So what do you have means if you have some passport or identification card, it can identify who is who. But at the same time, this paper or some physical things can be stolen easily. So some people, other people can be showing as if he is a different person. So that is not secured. So the next important point is what do you know? So what do you know means password. So if you know password, if you yourself knows password, it can be secured to some extent. But of course, nowadays, cybersecurity is one of the issues on the internet field. And of course, some password is leaked. Yeah, other people can utilize it as if he's Mr. A. So it is not well secured. So then number 3 is important. Number 3 is what you are. So what you are means you are the sole person to be identified. So in order to achieve this, the human beings has a very unique points like a fingerprint or facial recognition or even eyes or those kind of some unique points. So using this biometric unique points can be the point to be identified. Then this ID can be well secured, and the platform of all the other services can be more secured, and then the service provider can just only consider to the quality of the service or innovative of the service. So that's why I believe that this biometric solution can be very important to be in the platform of all of the identification.
Yes, and it has many advantages over the paper version, as I can see. And actually, what you share with us resonates with what Alonge-san alluded to earlier about overcoming the challenge of falsified drugs, because what digitization enables is to really ensure the security of identification. So it's actually I think maybe the application is very different, but you're both leveraging this benefit from digitization, and that can dramatically improve the quality of service that we receive in both of your cases. Thank you, panelists, for your contribution. I want to make sure before we wrap up the panel session that we address one question from the audience. We have actually received many, so I regret that we cannot go over too many, but actually a few of you raised the same point, so I would like to bring this to your attention. We talked about the fascinating opportunity and potential of industrialization in Africa using the digital technology, but there's this one sort of inhibitor to this almost that people point out. R&D investment is a clear must for such development. However, it is a scarce resource for both public and private sector. How do we overcome this R&D investment scarcity issue in Africa? And do we see any green shoots of change for the better? Both from the public point of view, sector point of view, or private sector point of view, it'll be great to hear from some of our panelists. I would turn to Yasunaga-san for a start.
Thank you very much, Nobuko-san, for the question. Yes, I strongly agree with your view. In my idea, in order to promote R&D investment, 3 types of human resources are indispensable. First category, science and technology leaders with solid academic background. Second, engineering leaders to combine various kinds of technologies in response to variety of social needs. And the third, skilled person who can efficiently and effectively materialize the leader's idea. Japan has a long experience to develop science, technology, and innovation by nurturing the human resources. For example, after Meiji Restoration, the national universities they were established, public research organizations were built, and the technology college, technology and the agriculture high schools are also they built. So that this kind of educational system shall be and can be customized to meet African needs and cultures from the human resource point of view. Thank you very much.
Definitely, the talent and education is a vital part. I would look to the rest of the panelists for those of you who may want to jump in.
Yes. I will talk about our own experience with R&D locally. So the RX scanner actually came out from a research project at a local university in Nigeria. And even the machine learning algorithm or the deep learning neural net that is used for identifying the quality medicines versus the test samples is also come out from a computer lab locally. So there is no scarcity of talent, of scientists, of researchers on the continent. We have top grade universities across Africa. I think what is usually missing is usually in two buckets. The first bucket being the appropriate resources to finance the scale of research, because a lot of the research is usually very sort of monoculture and focused because of budgetary constraints. And we know that if you actually want to develop a major company of any sort, you need to be contributing at least 3% of your revenues annually to R&D development. And I don't think there is any African country today that has contributed that much of their GDP towards R&D across the universities. So one of the ways we can solve this definitely is to begin to enable or prioritize the African governments to increase their budgetary allocation to both basic and applied research in their universities. Secondly, really working with international organizations like the UN, UNIDO, etc., to enable grant funding to the various scientists across the continent. And then thirdly, private sector players like ourselves need to get involved. Like, we are fully engaged with the universities locally. We sponsor research projects in our area of expertise, wherein both in machine learning as well as in drug testing, wherein upcoming researchers can use our technologies, test it, innovate on new ways to improve it in order to drive research in this area in the Nigerian country context, right? So that's the way we are contributing, and the more private sector players need to do so as well. And then lastly, really beginning to sort of push the researchers to move away from this sort of focus on basic research that is really narrow. They need to be able to think more outside of the box, thinking more around scaling and commercializing. So that's really addressing primary problems that is faced by society and by the private sector. So that way, when there's a combination of basic research and moving that to applied research, there can be more funding coming in because you're commercializing those technologies. You're able to reinvest the profits back into building out the research space as well. So that's how I believe that the approach be taken. In summary, more funding to the scientists, and secondly, really closing in that pipeline between basic research to applied research and commercialization.
Totally makes sense. And then we are running out of time a little bit, but Didier-san, I'm sure that you want to jump in. I was looking at you from Smart Africa because that's what you do to scale up this R&D investment. So maybe 1 minute from you, please.
Yes, indeed. Just wanted to add on top of what fellow panelists have just mentioned. I think government can also create an environment which is favorable for R&D because you can talk really about innovation, about technological development if we don't invest adequately in research and development. And I wanted to point out that some countries are really doing an amazing work in that. In that regard, when you look at the member state of Smart Africa, some countries, for example, put a investment codes. And I'll give the example of Rwanda because it's an environment that it's a country that has been working quite hard on improving its doing business environment. And recently they passed a new law, an investment law, that, for example, give tax incentives for companies which are investing in research and development. But not only that, also on capacity building. So it means, for example, on the tax, the corporate income tax, they are going to tax these expenses that went into this field. So that's an example, and it's not the only example in the continent. There are a lot. So it's the only way. I want also to give briefly, in few seconds, another initiative that SmartAfrica started called the SmartAfrica Digital Academy, which is really a platform to develop capacity from very specialized skills to up to the lower level, at the STEM level. And I think education and R&D are extremely important if we really want to talk about industrialization of the continent, and if we want really to talk about the digital transformation. So we would like really to see similar partnership in place, private sector, public sector, international organization, to work together in creating, the attracting investment in research and development.
Indeed, and that's a very appropriate remark to conclude this panel session. Thank you so much for this distinguished group of panelists, for your active participation. And we now move on to the next session, which is the segment with the ADC. I would like to introduce Hara-san from Japan Business Council of Africa to lead the session.
はい、ありがとうございます、小林さん。改めましてビジネス協議会の秦と申します。一昨日の Day1 に続いて、また登壇させていただきます。今日もよろしくお願いいたします。本日の、お題はアフリカの工業化というややちょっと大きめのテーマだったんですけれども、だからどこに論点を置くのかなというふうに思いながら今日のディスカッションを聞いてたんですが、モデレーターの小林さん非常にご苦労されたと思います。お疲れ様でございました。先ほどまでのディスカッションでは多分このことを言ったんだと思います。どうやらアフリカの工業化っていうのはこれまで日本や東南アジアが経験してきたそういった道を全く違った方法で歩んでいくんだろうと、全く新しい形の発展を示してくれるんだろうな、そういう前提というかそういうテーマを頭に置いて最新のデジタル技術の可能性について議論され、それと同時に、物流といったような、パネルディスカッションの中ではアナログとおっしゃってましたけれども、アナログの部分の現実とどうその最新のデジタル技術の可能性というのをつないでいこう、マッシュアップしていこうかっていうようなお話をいただきました。ビジネス協議会という日本の民間企業の力をアフリカのために、アフリカに行きたいという日本企業の皆さんの背中をどうやって押すかということを、活動の主軸に置いている我々としては、今日ご議論いただいて紹介いただいたようなアフリカの新しい形の工業化っていうものの可能性っていうのをもっともっと勉強しないといけないし、そこにチャンスを見出して投資を考えるって企業はたくさんいるだろうなと思ってます。その分やはり Day1 と同じように Day1 の電化の時も申し上げたんですけど、もっともっと多分私たち事務方がですね、アフリカの現地で起こっているリアルなことですね、例えば物の動きがどうなってるんだろうとか、最後のご質問のところで人材育成のところでもやはり人材育成をアフリカのコンテクストに合わせてお届けする、そういったやはりローカルノレッジを知った上でカスタマイズをしてお届けするっていう工夫は必要だし、そういったことがどんなことが必要なんだろうというところについては、私たちやはり協議会の人間が積極的にアンテナを高くして情報を取って皆さんにお返ししなきゃいけないなと思ってます。そういった意味では、一緒にいろいろご議論させていただいている ADC の大使の皆様にもぜひそういったオンダグラウンドで何が起こっているかという情報をこれから一緒に日本企業に発信していってほしいなというふうに思いました。ということで、今日の ADC のセッションですけど、やはり各国の政府を代表して、もうこれだけの大使の皆様が今かとお待ちされてますので、少し、趣向を変えて 今後日本の官と民がアフリカの工業化についてどうやったらいいんだろうって議論をするときに、これだけは抑えてほしいねと、今日デジタルという話とアナログの融合って話が出ましたけど、この他にもこれだけは抑えてほしいっていう論点があれば、ぜひ今日ここのテーブルに大使の皆さんに置いていただきたいと思ってます。例えば各国政府が最も工業化が重要だ、工業化やるんだったら国会やってくれと思って力を入れてらっしゃる分野であるとか、そのために各国政府がどんな政策アジェンダを用意されているか、そしてそれを実行するために実は日本と日本企業にどんなことを期待しているのか、そんなことを国もしくは地域、大陸全体の視点でぜひお話しいただければなと思っております。ということで、まずトップバッターとしてエリトリアのエスティファヌス大使から、コメントを頂戴したいと思います。大使、お願いいたします。
Well, thank you for the introduction. My main issue that I want to talk today is can Japan and East African countries shake hands, especially research, production, processing, packaging, transportation, and market access. This is the main thing that I want to discuss. Next page, please. To come, I have several points to mention. One is the 19th century reconnaissance that has happened in our region in the eastern part, and then the 20th century reconnaissance, and the 21st century perspectives, current regulatory environment in East Africa, opportunities in East Africa, and way forward. This next. This is 19th century reconnaissance of East Africa by an industrial country called Italy. Next page, please. As you can see here, the Italian Oriental African Empire, as it used to be called, has its own vision. About 1,800 kilometers, 6 times larger than Italy, estimated population of 7.8 million. Present, this population has grown to more than 300 million people. And they talk about the plateaus, the land use for agriculture is very extensive and suitable for variety of crop products. Besides fertile region, which has tributaries to the Nile, and the mineral wealth is precious metals, gold, platinum, and it seems diamond is also possible. They have iron, coal, and oil, and besides this, salt, potash, copper. They discuss about this during this period, as you can see in the old map. Next, please. In this legend, you can see all the points mentioned, especially concerning the mineral resource that is available in the oil and gas in that region. Next, please. This is 20th century reconnaissance of East Africa by an industrial country, Japan. This is a 1970 geological map that was made by Nippon Mining, or the Japanese companies and the experts in this place. Next, please. They have gone into different locations in this area, and they have made a survey which included the whole East Africa. In this one, it shows only the Eritrea and Ethiopia. Next, please. And this very clearly shows that all the big companies, British, American, Nippon Mining, Tenneco, oil companies, and others were deeply aware of what exists in this region, from the Red Sea up to the lower part of this Rift Valley area. Next, please. This is the 20th century reconnaissance of East Africa of course, by Japan. You can see here very clearly where Japan was interested to invest. In fact, this is the part the first part of Africa that Japan went after Tokyo Olympics for investment, especially the northern part. Please, next, please. As you can see in this map, this is a famous triangle from Tel Aviv to Addis to Tehran. This is the oil basin and resource, the Nubian Peninsula, the landmass in these two places, in the Nile, Horn of Africa, and Arab. Everybody knows there is rich resource and business opportunity in this area. Next, please. So in the 21st century, the perspective to industrialize East Africa is there is conducive national regulatory framework. Opportunities are available for Japan FDI in East Africa. Technical cooperation in the field of mineral and hydrocarbon resource is possible. Constructive diplomacy on mineral and hydrocarbon resource by the government of Japan and other stakeholders, and business conference by Japan private sector in each of our countries is very essential. Next, please. The current regulatory environment in East Africa, there is clear investment policies, equal treatment of domestic capital and foreign direct investment, responsible investment laws, incentives and guarantees, mechanisms for dispute settlement, efficient licensing procedure and offices, business formations, employment laws, land acquisition, free economic centers and are already established. Next, please. In agriculture, fisheries, manufacturing, natural resource, tourism, infrastructure, which the previous speakers mentioned, including the hard and the soft infrastructure, transportation, exclusive economic zones, health and other services are open for investment to the Japanese private sector. Next, please. So the way forward that I clearly see is for Japanese private sector to embark on and create a tie-up with East African countries and their private sector on research, production, processing, packaging, transportation, market access. These are key components where Japan can play, or the public and private sector of Japan can play constructive role. Japanese public and private sector to launch minerals and hydrocarbon with East African countries is very important. Next page, please. So we have to look for possible ways of bilateral cooperation in the field of geological survey, exploration, and industrialization. And East African countries look forward to meeting in future business conferences, hopefully to be held in each of our countries to facilitate business tie-up in infrastructure, soft and hard, industrialization, education, research, and service developments. With this note, let me thank you for giving me this opportunity.
大使ありがとうございました。最初から東アフリカっていう形で地域の視点でお話しいただけたことすごく印象に残っております。メッセージとしてはバックトゥザベーシックというんでしょうか。やはりもう一度過去に行ったことと同じことではあるかもしれないけど丁寧にやっていくことっていうのがあるんじゃないかっていうメッセージと、それからやはり将来近いうちにやっぱりビジネスパーソン同士で会う、そういった機会を作っていきましょうというメッセージをいただいたんだというふうにメモを取らせていただきました。では続きましてアルジェリアベンシェリフ大使からもコメントいただきたいと思います。お願いいたします。
Bonjour, je suis heureux de participer aux travaux de ce troisième forum d'affaires. Je voudrais à cette occasion remercier et féliciter les organisateurs de cet important événement pour le choix pertinent des thématiques, la qualité de la sélection des différents intervenants et le format choisi. Un hommage particulier doit être rendu à M. Takashi Hanajiri, aux membres de ses équipes et à mes collègues les ambassadeurs du Maroc et d'Afrique du Sud pour leurs précieuses contributions. Je voudrais également saluer mes collègues participants à la présente session et au forum en général. Je m'incline également à la mémoire de notre défunt collègue, l'ambassadeur Félix Ngoma, qui aurait pu être avec nous aujourd'hui et dont l'âme plane sur le présent forum. La présente session consacrée à l'industrialisation de l'Afrique soulève une problématique majeure dans le continent. Industrialiser l'Afrique est à la fois un vieux rêve caressé par nos pays et un objectif stratégique pour l'Afrique. Beaucoup de tentatives ont été menées dans ce sens par de nombreux pays avec des fortunes diverses. Le diagnostic de leurs échecs et de rares succès sont suffisamment connus pour s'y attarder. Le classement du continent dans ce domaine est suffisamment éloquent et clair pour en tirer les conséquences à l'ombre des mutations actuelles de l'économie mondiale. Aujourd'hui, industrialiser l'Afrique a deux objectifs stratégiques: développer les économies africaines et accélérer l'intégration africaine au plan économique au sens large. Développer l'Afrique, c'est d'ailleurs l'objectif de la TICAD qui porte bien son nom. Développer les économies de nos pays, c'est leur permettre de créer une dynamique permettant d'atteindre les objectifs du millénaire qui sont pour le moment loin de portée. Pour cela, industrialiser l'Afrique, c'est aussi synonyme d'asseoir une industrie porteuse d'effets d'entraînement sur les autres secteurs de l'économie, notamment l'agriculture et les services. En somme, allumer les moteurs de croissance, diversifier l'économie et noircir la matrice industrielle de nos économies, comme le disent les économistes. Une industrie qui permettra de transformer les matières premières dont regorge le continent et apporter la valeur ajoutée accrue. C'est aussi favoriser la naissance d'un système médical performant, résilient, assurant la disponibilité du médicament et son accessibilité. Au plan opérationnel, les économies africaines doivent s'insérer positivement dans ce sens-là dans la chaîne de valeur internationale. Pour mettre fin au schéma classique d'économie simple consommatrice, exportatrice de matières premières et consommatrice passive des biens manufacturés venus d'ailleurs, c'est-à-dire loin du statut d'économie extravertie ou autocentrée exposée aux chocs extérieurs. Pour cela, elles sont de nombreux choix, des partenariats et des investissements directs étrangers avec ce que la suppose comme législation et réglementation attractive. L'actuelle pandémie, bien sûr, ne doit pas être considérée comme une contrainte, mais une opportunité pour multiplier les rencontres basées sur la communication à distance, comme le présent forum. L'autre opportunité à souligner est la création de la zone de libre-échange africaine qui devrait permettre d'horizontaliser les économies africaines dans leur diversité et complémentarité. S'agissant de mon pays, l'Algérie a, dès les premières années de l'indépendance, engagé un processus d'industrialisation accéléré, auquel ont pris part des entreprises japonaises. Cette coopération riche et ancienne se poursuit à ce jour. Le défi actuel est de diversifier notre économie pour qu'elle couvre davantage de secteurs en intégrant et en impliquant les entreprises japonaises. Les différents séminaires que l'ambassade a organisés ici à Tokyo ont témoigné de l'intérêt des entreprises japonaises pour le marché algérien, que ce soit en matière d'investissement ou de partenariat. Plus récemment, la nouvelle législation en matière d'investissement direct et de partenariat est une nouvelle opportunité pour les entreprises japonaises qui s'ajoutent aux atouts de l'Algérie qu'elles connaissent bien, d'autant que la technologie japonaise est bien connue et appréciée en Algérie. Actuellement, beaucoup de secteurs sont ouverts aux investissements directs. Je citerai la valorisation du secteur minier, l'installation de stations solaires, le dessalement d'eau de mer, l'industrie automobile, la production de médicaments et équipements médicaux. La recherche de partenariats se fait actuellement par l'Agence nationale de promotion et d'investissement et d'autres plateformes riches en données. Pour revenir à l'Afrique, je voudrais souligner que le concept d'Afrique comme frontière, nouvelle frontière du monde, ne trouvera la plénitude de sa pertinence que s'il intègre l'Afrique comme acteur s'appropriant ce concept sur le terrain avec ses différents partenaires. C'est d'ailleurs le slogan depuis la conférence de Yokohama de 2013, le concept porté par la TICAD, l'appropriation de l'Afrique, l'appropriation de la TICAD par l'Afrique. Je vous remercie.
ありがとうございました。大使からはそうですね、アフリカのこの経済工業化っていうのは古い夢でもあるけれども新しい戦略的な目的であるというご発言いただきました。そしてキーワードとしてそれぞれの国の経済発展がそこの軸にアフリカのインテグレーションっていうのが入ってきていて、その新しい軸の中にもう一つ SDGs というキーワードも入ってきているということで、こういったことを念頭に置いてアフリカ自身の新しい工業化というものをぜひ TICAD とかそういった機会を使って、日本と一緒にやっていきたいというメッセージをいただいております。 特に大使の中にもアフリカフリートレードのお話もいただいてますので、こういったところもキーワードの一つになるのかなと思います。はい、それでは、続きましてガーナのオチョレ大使からもコメントいただきたいと思います。お願いします。
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I thank the Third Japan Africa Business Forum for the invitation and the opportunity to give you the Ghanaian perspective. We regard industrialization as a prerequisite to Africa's sustainable and inclusive growth, achieving through adding value by processing and packaging its raw materials. In 2019, the African Development Bank indicated that Africa was home to 5 of the 10 of the fastest growing economies in the world. But this growth was not sustainable and non-inclusive, since it was mostly driven by exports of unprocessed commodities with a little value addition. But in Ghana, the history of industrialization has been a checkered one. A policy of import substitution was introduced by the first president of Ghana, but with his overthrow in 1966, a period of decline started. Presently, coupled with the Chinese factor, subsequent Ghanaian government has to adopt a policy much more akin to the Ghanaian situation. And the fact that Southeast Asia trajectory is not now possible in Africa, and in Ghana in particular, we believed. So if I can fast forward to 2017, a policy which is defined as Ghana Beyond Aid was introduced with the aim of moving the country toward self-sufficiency through a value addition to our natural resources. As a follow-up to above policy, the government of Ghana, through the Ministry of Trade and Industry, came up with 10-point industrial transformation agenda, which is geared generally from economy over-reliant on a resource base to one driven by value-added exports. The foremost initiative is the One District, One Factory, which is a key component of industrial transformation agenda. The Ghanaian government aims to establish at least one medium to large-scale factory in each administrative district of the country, taking into account respective comparative advantage and resource endowment. And due to time constraint, I'm going to give you the areas which we believe with the Japanese business assistant cooperation, Ghana can make way in terms of industrialization. Agro processing. Fortunately, we have 2 growing seasons in Ghana. Pharmaceutical industry. There's a vibrant pharmaceutical industry in Ghana, and integrated aluminum industry. We have a huge deposit of bauxite. And also recently, there's a large discovery of large deposits of lithium. And iron and steel industry, once again, a large deposit of iron ore. Automobile and vehicle assembly plants. With the advent of the Toyota Tsusho in the Ghanaian market, we hope it will attract further Japanese companies to look at Ghana as a starting off point to Africa, not just to West Africa. Textiles, because we have a history of cotton growing in Ghana, which has been part of our textile industry. Ghana has a capacity of exporting almost 2 million tons of salt every year. Petrochemicals and the manufacturing of machines and machinery equipment. To this end, we hope that the opportunity created by the AFTA should stimulate Japanese investors to partner Africa to increase both domestic and foreign domestic investment, which in turn should foster technological upgrade, an important driver of industrialization. We believe with the areas which are outlined previously should be attractive enough for the Japanese companies to be looking to Ghana. And within this my period of being here, the number of the Japanese companies who have looked in Ghana, we need manufacturers of machines, machinery companies to provide the necessary service and support for these industries. We thank you for the opportunity for us to give you little of the Ghanaian perspective.
ありがとうございました。大使からはそうですね、国が重要視している10のインダストリアルトランスフォーメーションアジェンダがありますよということを具体的にご紹介いただきました。先ほどのアルジェリアン大使もおっしゃってたんですけれども、その前のエステファノス大使もおっしゃってたんですが、どうもやはり農業とか医薬品っていったところでのプロセッシングとかそういったものを加えてバリューアッドしていくっていうところについて非常に各国ニーズが高いんだなというふうにも感じさせていただきました。またガーナの大使からはやはり同じくアフリカコンチネンタルフリートレードエリアの効果っていうのは大きいよっていう話もいただいてますので、こういったところが今後日本企業が考えていくときにヒントになるキーワードなんだろうなと思います。はい、それでは続きましてエチオピアの笠大使お願いしてよろしいですか。お願いします。
Good evening. Thank you very much. Would you please next slide? My focus is on these points. Please next slide. As you know, African industrialization hasn't been a successful story so far, even though there are isolated success stories. There are a number of factors. Next slide, please. Major factors are, number one, structural factors, the global division of labor, and Africa is until now a raw material supplier. Next slide, please. The second one is unmet global and regional promises like UNIDO, SDG, and other promises are not successful until now. The third one is unemployment, high population pressure, and low productivity. And currently the COVID are the major problems we can mention. Next slide, please. Nevertheless, Africa remains to the next frontier of industrialization, and Ethiopia is also in that package. Number one is population and abundant natural resource. Next slide, please. The second one is abundant market and new opportunities. The middle income is growing. The market network is also strengthened within African countries, even the regional countries. Next slide, please. Policy and institutional reforms in various African countries are undergoing, including my country, because political, economic, and legal frameworks are undergoing that attracts the Japanese companies. Connectivity with the world, especially Ethiopian airline, also working hard. To mention some examples, special economic zone in Rwanda, Togo's agribusiness and Namibia's logistics hub. We can mention these are as opportunities. Can you next slide, please? The regional economic integration and infrastructure, as Ambassador Eritrean said, there is an attempt to regional integration in the region that could create more opportunity for the Japanese private sectors. And commitment to diversification. At the previous presenters, they told us lots of diverse opportunities are there. Entrepreneur ecosystem conducive of the growth of SME. Next slide, please. Next slide, please now. Next slide, please. So now I want to focus to possible solutions and recommendations to strengthen global collaboration. For example, increase the FDI, especially from Japan. In Ethiopia, we have more than 12 industrial parks, and we have 6 industrial agro-processing parks. We have private industrial parks, and also we have a big pool of entrepreneurs. But that needs a partner, and also they have a financial problem, and this requires to enhance the African industrialization. Next slide, please. New growth initiative. I want to focus here. TICAD must be, and Japan must be think how that creates, the value chain in Asia. Africa, everything is there, but Africa is disconnected with the world. The other one is other presenters, as I said, technology is another important thing to live. Next slide, please. Digitalization. The final point here is a synergy. Synergy is very important. Many initiatives are there, but highly disorganized. So this initiative, synergy is the most important element. Final slide, please. What Japan can do? I think that Japan, the work culture, quality orientation, maintaining culture, knowledge transfer, and value chain creation, finance and technology transfer, digitalization, bridging the infrastructure gap, global marketing network through, bringing the Japanese companies to the continent will help to ensure the leapfrog of industrialization in Africa. Thank you very much.
大使ありがとうございます。大使からもあれですね、アフリカ各国が一生懸命ビジネス環境を整えることをやってるよっていう話と、それからやはりアフリカ全体のフリートレードエリアを作ろうという構想の下で、地域共同体の中でもいろんな動きがしっかりと前向きに動いてますというご紹介と、最後に非常に嬉しかったのが、日本企業に期待していることの中にワークカルチャーとか、こういったところも実は日本企業が当たり前に思っていることもアフリカの人たちにとってみれば非常に価値のある教えになるのかもしれないなというふうにヒントをいただきました。はい、それでは、続きましてですね、今度は、地域共同体ですね、レックスを代表いただきまして、サダックの事務局のルタイワ博士から、コメントいただきたいと思います。お願いします。
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, colleague, Your Excellencies and all the delegates. And I'm really sorry for the experience that I'm going through. I'm unable to join through my laptop because of the network issue. And I'll present this using I'm using my phone actually to present. And since I cannot screen from this side, can you please proceed with the next slide? I will touch very briefly of what we are doing in the region in terms of the industrialization. Sorry, I think I'm interfering with another call that's coming in my phone. But okay. I think we're going to proceed. In terms of the industrialization in the region, we do have our strategy, which was launched in 2015, and it's being implemented in 3 phases. Phase 1, which is was running from 2015 to 2020. We have currently just finished it. And the second phase runs from 2021 to 2050. And the last one is 2051 to 2063. The first phase was basically looking on the front loading or setting up the actual of the region. Looking on the strategy and roadmap that we have as a region, it's linked up with the Agenda 2063, as well as SDGs 2030. There are a number of SDGs that we are implementing directly that are related to industrialization, and this one of them being agenda number 9, which is focusing more on innovation and industrialization. In terms of the market size as a region, we do have the 2.8 million capacity, and you are also benefiting from free trade area, which is a composition of the 3 regs, that is EAC and COMESA as well as SADC, and we are benefiting on the market of around 7 million people. What are we focusing in terms of the industrialization? As a region, our growth paths are totally different from what other countries like Asia, Europe have experienced or have gone through in terms of the industrialization. For us, we are taking the advantage of our natural resources, and this being the agro-processing, mineral beneficiation, and the pharmaceutical. In terms of the agro-processing, so far, what we have done, we have been able to profile the entire region in terms of our potential, what we have in the region. And we have come up with the 60 priority subsectors, being soya, rice, leather and leather products, cotton, to mention just a few. In terms of the mineral beneficiation, we have been able to come up with our regional mining vision as well as its action plan. It was approved by the heads of state in 2019, and now it's in the course of the implementation. And in terms of the pharmaceutical value chain, we do have our business plan for pharmaceutical, and we do have the pool procurement plan, where United Republic of Tanzania has been nominated as a member state to represent as a member state in terms of the pool procurement whenever any kind of drugs is required in the region. So with this pool procurement plan, member states are not required to negotiate on their own. It's only one member state which is negotiating on their behalf. Next slide. In terms of the, let us jump this slide. In terms of the implementation of the strategy and roadmap, we have 4 pillars. One being the industrialization, the second one being the competitiveness, and the third one being the regional integration. And all these, we are working concurrently. We are not operating them different. All they are being operated concurrently. And the last one is cross-cutting issues, where we are trying to address the issue to do with the people with disabilities, youth, and women. As I conclude, I know we are short of time. In terms of the conclusion, I think you can go to the next slide. In terms of the conclusion, as a region, what we understand or what we have is that we do have the value chain which I've already identified. And the critical factor now, or the area for focusing now, is how are we concentrating in the product per se, or specific segment within the value chain that have been identified. Thank you very much for your attention and for taking time to listen to my presentation.
Thank you. ありがとうございました。太陽さん、Keep Connected でよかったです。ですね、これでご発表いただく大使の皆様と地域共同体の皆様の発表終わったんですが、よく考えると中央アフリカ、セントラルアフリカの皆さんの声っていうのを、拾うことがちょっとできてないなと思いまして、ガボンのオバッゲ大使、もしよろしければちょっと一言中央アフリカ地域のことをお話しいただければなと思うんですが、Just 2 minutes please なんですけど。
Hello?
いけそうですか？
Oui, madame, merci beaucoup. Je vous remercie pour me donner la parole, pour essayer de vous donner quelques éléments concernant la politique d'industrialisation dans les pays de l'Afrique centrale. Je voulais simplement, à la suite des orateurs qui m'ont précédé, ajouter que la politique d'industrialisation de nos pays est axée sur la stratégie nationale de diversification économique avec l'effritement des matières premières connues dans notre zone. L'objectif principal dans cette stratégie est de promouvoir le secteur privé comme moteur de croissance. Et ce qu'il faut reconnaître très rapidement, c'est que pour y parvenir, les mesures suivantes ont été implémentées dans nos pays. Premièrement, c'est le renforcement du cadre réglementaire et institutionnel de la promotion des exportations. Deuxième mesure, c'est l'amélioration de la qualité du capital humain. Troisième mesure, c'est la création d'un environnement des affaires équitable
et transparent. Quatrième mesure, c'est l'amélioration de la qualité et la réduction des coûts de service des infrastructures. Et la dernière mesure qui a été mise en place pour favoriser la diversification économique dans nos pays, c'est la refonte et la dynamisation des instruments d'appui et d'accompagnement des entreprises. C'est-à-dire simplement qu'il y a dans chacun de nos pays un ensemble de structures qui ont été mises en place, c'est-à-dire les chambres de commerce, les agences de promotion des investissements chez nous. Voilà ce qui a été fait pour susciter l'intervention du secteur privé dans nos pays. Je vous remercie, madame.
ありがとうございました。すいません、突然の振りで対応いただきありがとうございます。はい、これでちょっとお時間がもう迫ってまいりましたので、ADC セッション一通り締めさせていただきたいと思います。アフリカ自身が地域統合とかそういったところを大きなチャンスと捉えてすでに動き始めていて、それを支える政府側もさまざまなアジェンダを用意されていて、特にビジネス環境整備をしていくよということをお力強くメッセージいただいております。やはり我々ちょっと民間企業としてもですね、もっともっとアフリカの市場の方にディープダイブしていって何が起こっているのかっていうのをしっかりと把握し続けていく、そして一つ一つの出会いを大切にビジネスにつなげていくということをちょっと機会をたくさん作っていかなきゃいけないなというのは今日の論点だと思います。でこういった論点はちょっと今日のセッションでは終わらせる議論を完了させるわけにはいかないので、今後日本が主催する日アフリカ官民経済フォーラムとか TICAD に向けて引き続きビジネス協議会として皆さんと一緒に議論をさせていただきたいなと思っています。今日はADC 大使の皆様ありがとうございました。で小林さんにお返しします。よろしくお願いします。
原さんありがとうございます。皆さんご清聴ありがとうございました。最初のパネルディスカッションとそれから後半の、大使のセッションというのはなかなかいいコントラストだったなというふうに拝聴していて思いました。大使の方ではどちらかというとですね、ヒストリーを振り返ったり、かなりサスティナビリティということにも何人かの方が触れていらっしゃいました。これはもちろん前半でもアンダーカレントとして下地としてあった考え方だと思いますけれども、今我々がCOVID の暗いトンネルをですねようやく抜けてきた時に、一つ思うことはやっぱりサステイナビリティということが非常にこれからのアフリカだけではなくてですね、地球全体にとっての重要アジェンダであると。でそのためにはみんなコネクトされているということが今回のクライシスで危機で明らかになりました。よってアフリカを助けるまたはアフリカを援助するというとなんとなく上から目線なんですけれども、結局アフリカをサポートすることは日本自身をサポートすることなんだなと、そういうふうにつながっているというふうに思います。よって今までのように例えば歴史を振り返るとですね、自然資源にだけ注目したり、またヒューマンキャピタルだけに注目してエクスプロイテーションをするのではなくて、一緒にインクルーシブ・サステイナブル・グロースという言葉が確かガーナの大使からも聞かれましたけれども、そこを作っていく、そこに日本の官も民も協力できれば一番だなというふうに思っております。日本の果たせる役割も、それからインダストリアリゼーションという意味で、少し先を行った国として、手を差し伸べられる範囲が非常に多いというふうに私自身も感じました。今日は皆さん長い時間になりましたが、2つのセッション続けてお聞きいただきました。どうもありがとうございました。
小林様、原様、大使閣下の皆様、ありがとうございました。以上をもちましてセッション3、アフリカの工業化を終了させていただきます。次のセッション4、スタートアップセッションは来週7月6日火曜日の日本時間17時から開催いたします。ぜひご参加ください。また本日の動画も本プログラム終了後はアーカイブとしてご視聴いただけます。プルダウンメニューから本日の日付、セッションとご希望の言語を選択しご視聴ください。本フォーラム終了後、アンケートがポップアップで表示されます。ぜひアンケートへのご協力をお願い申し上げます。すぐのご回答が難しい場合は、後ほどイベントページの右上にありますクリップボードのマークをクリックいただくと、アンケート一覧が表示されますので、そちらよりご回答をお願いいたします。また、 本セッションと並行してオンラインビジネスマッチングが7月16日まで行われております。一般視聴者としてご参加の方で、ビジネスマッチングにご参加をご希望の方は、JABF 事務局までご連絡ください。本日はご参加いただきまして、誠にありがとうございました。